Well, good morning, everybody. Wes McDonald here with my good friend Kenneth Edmonds. How are you, Kenneth?
I am fine. How are things with you? I noticed that you're in a new place.
I am. I'm in a temporary new place. As everyone knows, we've missed a couple of shows because I've actually been off playing handyman, and I'm not very handy, so everything takes me a little longer than probably most people. But yeah, the house that we bought is definitely a fixer-upper, and we've been spending a lot of time working on the kitchen, which has really come together quite well. I'm quite happy with it. We've got the rooms all re-drywalled and painted, and I think we're on schedule. Usually these things take longer than you'd expect, but I think I'm actually on schedule. So good to be back actually doing the work that I get paid to do, because I think I'm better at this. I'm sure there are those out there who would disagree, but I'm better at this than being a handyman. So
Yeah, I'm one of those guys that you need one part and it takes four trips to the hardware store to find it.
Yeah,
or to get the right one. You buy three that are wrong, and before you finally figure out what you really needed.
Oh, that's the best thing in the world, especially with today's return policies, right? You just buy a bunch of things and then you take the ones that you don't need back. Because if you're like us, you're going to be going back for something else anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Lots of trips in your future. Yeah, and what I'm learning though is that sometimes it's probably, when you work it out in dollars per hour, it's probably better to just pay people to do the work instead of you taking off the time to do it yourself. And that's probably a good segue in today's show, because we're going to be talking about compensation. And
yeah, I was and just along those lines, this is a conversation I have with my service managers all the time, is because you'll see service managers doing things that other people could do. And I tell them that in any organization and in your life, this applies as well, is that there's $25 labor, $10 labor, $5 labor. And you don't ever want the $25 an hour labor doing $5 an hour work.
Right.
It's not a class thing. It's not I'm better than other people, but I need to apply my resources as effectively as possible.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely efficiency, especially in organizations that have a lot of service techs, because as you know from training them and having worked with so many in your time and doing it yourself, that those dollars are better spent on some of the more complex tasks that their experience kind of garners, right? So in the case of a home reno, if you like the idea of accomplishing something and you know that it's costing you more simply because it's a hobby, which really it is for anyone that's doing DIY in our lives, then get some satisfaction out of it. Just understand you're going to pay more than you would if you paid somebody else. Oh, absolutely love it. Yeah, but good segue into today, compensation. And for everyone that's tuning in to Flight World Live, if you're watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, we'd love to hear your questions and comments. So wherever you see your little text box there in your window, just feel free to enter your information. If you're on Facebook, we probably can't see who you are, because that's one of the things that Facebook does. They like to keep everyone's identity hidden. So just make sure you give us your name. And maybe where we can start with, Ken, is one that you like.
Yeah, my favorite one is where are you from? Or maybe even where are you today? Because with me, I'm from one place, but I'm all over the place. You just never know where I'm joining from. Today, I'm actually in my home office in front of a virtual brick wall. Yeah, you can tell it's virtual because the background fades in and out.
your chair is magically disappearing into the wall, like in what is it, 9 1/4 in Harry Potter when they walk through the brick wall? Maybe that's where you are. And I myself am temporarily somewhere else as well. So if you look behind me, that's not the stuff everyone's used to looking at. Because guess what? That doesn't exist anymore. That place is sold. And I'm moving into a new place. But as I said, we're doing renovations. So in the meantime, I am living in a short-term rental. And it's probably nicer than my house. Hey, Sam. See you in Virginia. Good to see you, buddy. Let me see if I can put that up there. Yeah, and that's fun. I actually got a comment from Sam this morning. I posted my first sunset picture from the new neighborhood yesterday. And Sam, thanks for the comment. And I will and do enjoy every single one. How can you not, right?
Exactly.
Look, we got our friend Wes McCarter, my namesake. He wears it better than I do. And coming in from sunny Arizona. Love it. Well, we're starting to get more sunny, like summer weather here as well. So that's exciting. Oh, we got one more coming in here. Let's see. Bill Brown from California. Nice. Well, hope you're enjoying the weather down there in California, Bill, and thanks very much for tuning in today. So remember, leave your questions and comments as we move through this. We'd love to hear them, especially if you have ideas, things that for you have worked for compensation, because we're going to be talking about mixing up the model quite a bit here today. And of course, as you start to come in, continue to let us know where you are. Hey, our good friend OJ, Northern Virginia. So OJ, sorry for being out the last couple of weeks, and we're back on schedule. And Don King is from beautiful East Tennessee. I'm correct on that, right? Because I'm Canadian, so TN is Tennessee.
TN is Tennessee.
All right. It's like if you see QC in Canada, that's actually for Quebec. But
yes,
I digress. Well, that's great, everybody. Thanks for coming in today. One of the first thing I was going to put up here is that we all know this, especially right now. Hiring and compensation and retention is probably one of the biggest issues facing every organization right now. I was speaking with a dealer the other day in our top 100 sessions that we have every week. So we got another one coming up today. And they were ecstatic because they actually got another couple of hires, right? Another dealer that I work with on a regular basis, he does a lot of, he's done a really good job of transitioning business from just being off equipment into moving into managed IT services and security as well. He's finally hired a couple people, but says that it has been absolutely, trying, right? Hey, Rob, thanks for joining us from Northern California. Welcome to the show. And Pat from New Jersey, welcome. Right around the corner.
And so let's just throw this out as a question, Wes. Is what are you seeing? For those that are in the audience, what are you seeing as far as hiring? Is it easy or hard? Are you paying more or less?
All right, we'll see.
Give you a couple of minutes.
And while we're waiting for those, Ken, maybe you can talk a little bit about why hiring is hard.
Well, there's several challenges that I'm seeing as I talk to service managers in my training programs, as as I talk to just dealers in general. First of all, everywhere you look, people are hiring. So that's a challenge. There's more competition in the workforce. Another challenge that we're seeing is that salaries are escalating. So what you used to pay in most cases will not buy labor anymore because there are so many opportunities out there. Yeah, Sam says louder, harder, and a lot more. And part of it is that the generation that's moving into the workforce is a very different generation than the generation that moved out of the workforce. What we find is that the millennials and the Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z have different wishes in a job. They're looking for different things. They have much higher salary expectations, especially if they have any IT skills at all. It's incredible what they expect. And so all of those things are affecting both retention and affecting recruiting and hiring. What do you see on the sales side, Wes?
Yeah, I mean, I see the same thing on the sales side for sure, right? Especially that we have in this industry, and I'll get to the answer on that in a second. But Bill says it's harder and more over last year, so it seems like we got consensus on this. OJ says it can be easy, but hiring the right people is hard, absolutely. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go, right? And Pat says that no one wants to turn a screwdriver anymore. Yeah, so on the sales side, it's actually, Pat, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people don't want to sell a copier anymore. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. It's just that the money isn't what it used to be, right? That, Ken, you can remember in the early days, like, when somebody sold a 65-page a minute device, right, with full finishing features and everything else, it was payday.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, right now, we've got this double whammy of the price of everything coming down. So that there's less money, to begin with for the same device, right? And the second problem is we can't even get the stuff. So there's, with the supply chain issues and stuff, it's been very difficult, on the sales side. And just like people not wanting to turn screwdrivers, on the sales side, there are, quite frankly, some different things that younger people probably want to sell. It's probably more related to artificial intelligence. It's probably more related to some of the emerging technologies that are coming out. And as we all know, in the early days, that's when you make hay, right? We talk about that, purple cow. So yeah, we've got these problems all around, and those are just some of the obvious ones, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say, just to touch on that a little bit, is most young people see the copier industry as a dying industry. And while there's still some life in it, I had a conversation with a gentleman. I'll talk about this in a minute, but one of the points we talked about in our conversation is the fact that volumes are down and revenue is down. And so if you're a salesperson, do you want to go into an industry where the trend is down in unit placements, the trend is down in size of units placed, the trend in revenue for the copier is down, and where everybody's trying to be the low ball? That's, there's not a lot of selling in those points. It's nothing real attractive.
You know what the answer there though is, and we both work with a lot of dealers that are doing flat rate for their managed print, and are also doing flat rate or subscription models for managed IT, cybersecurity, unified communication, and other things, right? So, whereas I think in the old days, the copier used to be the burger, and we would sell something like document management as the fries. I think what's happening now is the burger is becoming some of these other technology services. And you got to think, the average managed print deal garners about, and this was in the good days, $17 to $24 a user, whereas a full security stack can garner anywhere from $80 to $150 a user, right? So these technology services are now becoming the burger, and the copiers and stuff. I'd still want to sell them because print's persistent in a lot of verticals, because those fries have pretty high margin.
Yeah. Well, that's like, you think of it like the drink. You can have a good margin on a soft drink.
Yes.
Because it's mostly water.
Yeah. So I think to make retention less hard, obviously a lot of, like I said, a lot of the dealers that we work with that are doing diversified services or converged services, whichever one you want to call it, that they are having a better time with retention because they have more future opportunities for their staff, right? So, make sure that I don't even think we have to say this anymore. I think everyone knows that these diversification options have to come into play. It's just a question of if they've started, right? It's a question of when, which is funny. Yeah. You and I, Ken, are old dogs. We've been in this a long time. We talked about this 5 years ago. And, the MPS purists were adamant that, there would never have to be a need for a change, right? And we're certainly seeing that change happen. Yeah. So remember, everyone, if you got your own questions or comments or think that we're full of phooey or whatever, make sure you leave them. If you're a managed print dealer that's doing exclusively managed print and getting a lot of reps and service techs selling copiers in your region. And this is one other thing, Ken, I think there's no hard or fast rule. One of the episodes we did on remote work, if you remember, people were saying that in certain territories, in certain areas, certain states, that remote work never happened anyway, right? Whereas in larger metropolitan areas, it's still a big part of, even though the pandemic restrictions have been taken away, it's still a big part of how people work, right? So just like that, for selling copiers and prints and management and everything else, it's still very much tied to, regionality, right? And I've spoken with dealers as well who are in more rural areas, serving smaller communities, and they're still making an incredible amount of hay just selling copy and print, right?
Yeah, I would say, and just going back to retention a little bit, is one of the things that will make a huge impact on retention is the option to move up in the company, to have some kind of progression, some kind of career path in the company. The Google says the average expectancy for a millennial is 3 years in a job. But it's in a job or a position, not necessarily in a company. So as long as there's somewhere for them to go, and that goes back to what you were saying about the diversification, because if people get the sense that a company is expanding and looking at new products and those kinds of things, then it creates this perception in an employee's mind that there's going to be opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Of all the jobs I've ever had in my life, the ones that have been the most rewarding are the ones where it just seems like things are changing every 6 months, right? That there's a new thing, that there's that there's energy to that, right? There's energy to that kind of growth. So let's maybe, segue into this a bit now and talk about compensation. So retention.
Okay, let me go first. Let me have my slide.
Of course. You ready? I'm going to fire this.
Yeah, I'm ready. Because one of the challenges with most companies' compensation plan is the carrots in the wrong place. So I created, well, my sister drew the donkey for me, but I created this graphic, which you can tell because it's not pretty like West's graphics would be. But in your company, the question is, are you paying people to go where you want them to go, or are you paying them to do something else? And I'm going to tell a story. This was my story. One of the major manufacturers. I went to work for them as a district service manager, and my first day on the job, I go in, and I'm talking to my boss, and he says, "Okay, and here's your bonus structure set up so that you get bonus based on the number of dealer visits you do, and your cost per dealer visit." And just a little bit later, he said, and Ken, I want you to spend 2 days at every dealer when you go do a dealer visit. Now, I'm fairly good at math. And I'm like, if I do 1 day dealer visits, I get twice as many dealer visits at half the cost. And so I told the gentleman, I said, John, you're paying me to do 1 day visits. And he said, no, I want you to do 2 day visits. I said, do you, if you want that, then pay me, base it on dealer visit days and cost per dealer visit day, and I'm fine with that. He says, nope, I can't change that, but I want 2 day visits. He never, ever got a 2 day visit because that wasn't what he was paying me for unless I was actually stuck working on something. In fact, he got a lot of half day visits. I do drive-by visits with small dealers just because that padded my numbers and made me more money. People work to their comp plans. So make sure that your comp plan goes where you want it to go. And one more thing, and then I'll let you talk, Wes. But I was talking to a dealer principal and a service manager. And the service manager said something about putting a bonus on the technicians. And the owner said, why would I want to pay them a bonus? I pay them for 8 hours work every day. So my question would be, and I didn't want to do it and embarrass the dealer at that point in time, but this is the question I have, is do you want 8 hours work, or do you want 8 hours of productive work? What do you want? What do you need from your employee?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, I love the idea of, people do what they get paid to work. Right. And, in the world of sales, we say rather lovingly, actually, that sales reps are coin operated. Now, in all my years of sales, it never insulted me because I love this idea that the amount of revenue you can make is actually pretty unlimited, right? So, keep those coins coming. So when models change, the coins change too, right? And I think that's part of the problem now is that, like in your illustration, maybe the donkey was going the right way, based on how they were compensated based on the old models, but maybe they no longer are, right? And one of the things that we talk about, Ken, in the flat rate world, and this early on, there's less hesitancy now from dealers, but early on, they were worried about margins, right? Being able to make money when you don't have sort of incremental revenues coming in all the time, every time pages are printed, right? Once people learn the math, once people learn that customers are actually printing on average 5% or less a year during a pandemic, that was as much as 20 or 25%, in some cases even higher. But at any rate, once those costs sort of stabilize, everything is a cost, right? So color pages are a cost. The more color people print, the less margin that you make on that deal, right? So when we're crafting these deals now, if a sales rep is paid on GP, and if they're paid, if the organization is used to making more money on color, guess what they're going to sell, Ken?
Big devices and lots of color.
Right. So that doesn't work in a flat rate world. So now all of a sudden, that behavior that they've always been incented for is now a liability. And one of the things, I'm just going to share my screen. Oh, go ahead, Ken. Make a comment, please.
I want to say this about what you just said, because it didn't work in the old world either. Because the big machines and low volume with color in a black and white environment turned into huge expenses in the service department. Now, they were great for the guy that sold the deal, but the service manager wound up losing money, and it was bad for the company. And that's a perfect example of paying somebody for something that was not what you wanted them to do. Yeah, I'll share another quick story. I had a conversation with a dealer principal one time, and we were talking about selling at book price on service contracts, and he told me, he said, Ken, you can't sell at book price. They can't get the deals. And I challenged him. I said, listen, change your comp plan so your sales reps make more if they sell at book rate. 6 months later, almost every deal was at book rate for service because they moved the carrot. And this is what we need to think about in our industry is how do we move the carrot? Put the carrot where we really want the people to go. And obviously, I'm a huge flat rate fan, but I will say this, that no matter what model you use for billing your customer, because flat rate is a billing model and a philosophy, and West and I are huge believers in it. But no matter what model, the thing that you want to make sure of is that you're paying your salespeople to do what's best for your company. And I will make this other statement too, because I have this real frustration is don't believe that your manufacturer is your partner. They're a vendor and they want you to do things that are bad for your company. Stop. I'll get off that soapbox.
Man, I want to see what's that place in London? Speaker's Corner, right? We'll have to get you up there in Speaker's Corner because that was a good.
I'm passionate about some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, I'm with you, buddy, and you know what? I completely agree with you, right? And the screen I have up here, I know people probably can't see it too well, but feel free to take a screenshot if you want to, try and study it afterwards or get in touch with Ken and I. This is something that we provide for the folks that we consult with and help with their flat rate programs. And it's basically making retention higher by making sure that there's an annuity paid to the sales reps. And there's a couple of ways to do it. Some of the dealers that Ken and I work with choose just to do a % of total revenue, which includes the service and supplies revenue, right? Which traditionally for a lot of companies has not been the case. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to make sure that for every page that's printed or for every subscription term that continues for another month, that the sales rep gets a piece of that. And so you can see that over on the, column F as you start to look at what that looks like. And what's cool about this is that if we're having a hard time, especially in the copier industry, and I'll get rid of this screen now so we can just talk. When reps are paid purely to sell a device, so if it's a % of GP or margin, however they're doing it, once that's done, they don't care about the customer anymore. And in a service world, like in a world where we are looking for monthly subscriptions to go on forever, that doesn't work, right? That we need to make sure that they're incented somehow to make sure that customer's happy. As the sales rep starts to build a book of business with that annuity over time, they start to make money before they get out of bed in the morning. And there are some dealer principals who don't like that fact. They think it makes for lazy sales reps. And the first thing I'll say, now I'm going to get on my soapbox, is that you've got the wrong sales reps. If you have people that get lazy because they're making money before they go to bed in the morning, those are not entrepreneurial sales reps. They're not the ones that we want. We want them to behave like business owners, right? And that's what we love. That's why we're all independent. That's why we're in business and run companies, is because we make money before we get out of bed in the morning. And that's what we're trying to do, is build that business, right? So if we're going from $2 million a year in revenue to $5 million to 10 to 25 to 150 to 200, it's never enough, right? Now, for the sales reps, once that annuity starts to raise, that it's very hard for someone to poach them because they'll have to say goodbye to that annuity revenue, right? So a sales rep that's seasoned, that's been with you for 5 years, that's being paid some kind of annuity in all the contracts that they've been delivering, right? That's going to be a very hard person to poach from your organization. So there you go. There's my Speaker's Corner rant on annuity and using that as the new carrot.
Okay, and for those dealers that think that, well, if I pay them annuity, they won't sell. That would be because you don't have your comp plan structured right. Because the way they get their annuity is by bringing in net new business.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you that all you care about in reality from a sales rep is net new business. Anything else is just making money for him. Net new business is how your company grows.
Yeah, I always give a big shout out to to Kevin Morris on this one at OneDoc, because in the early days when I was kind of looking at annuity, and again, people being concerned about reps getting lazy, he built into his contract. It was always annuity based. And again, to your point, Ken, that it's not just for flat rate. He's been doing this, for traditional managed print since he started. And the piece that he has in his in the sales reps contract is that if they don't hit 70% of their net new business target, they don't get that annuity for the quarter, right? So it doesn't disappear forever, but for that quarter where they don't hit their number, they don't get that annuity. So guess what that does? That drives them to make sure they're getting that net new business so they can continue to get that, that annuity, right? So it's just a question of being smart in the language in the contracts and making sure, again, that carrot is driving, the behavior that you want. So if you need net new business and you're worried that an annuity-based comp plan is not going to give that to you, then by all means, make sure that you put in a clause in that to make sure that the reps know that they are still responsible for net new business. And if they don't get it, they don't get some other things as well, right? So I don't know, is that what do you call it? Is that a stick? I don't think so. I think it dangles the carrot a little further out of reach.
Well, but no, I think it's glue. It was the best way I would say, because it makes the carrot bigger and bigger, because that annuity gets bigger and bigger over time. I want everybody that's listening to this, whether you're listening on the replay or you're listening in person, to put in the comments why you think your life insurance agent doesn't change companies, because there's a reason. And after Wes goes through this calculator, we'll talk about this a little bit on the service side as well. But Wes has got a great tool.
Well, it's one we love to share, right? So, you don't have to, make this up. You can actually go in. I'm going to scroll up to the top a little bit because the compensation is built around the deal. So once you use the calculator to do the deal crafting for the flat rate offering that you're giving to the customer, and as we've talked about, there's basically three ways to do it. One is traditional flat rate without any changes to how the customer is printing. The second is introducing for a better price for the customer and better margins for the dealer, some simple rules like increasing duplex and getting rid of waste pages. And a third one, which incorporates authentication at the devices for improved security and further cost reduction, which gives the customer a better price and more total margin dollars for the dealer. I just love the way that this works for dealers that are doing flat rate in this fashion. And once you've crafted that deal, then we've actually got both a percent revenue and an annuity-based calculation for compensation for the sales reps. So you can compare and contrast and start to look at this and see how you want to, work with your sales reps to be able to compensate them, in this fashion, right? And so it's available to those that do work with us. There are many ways to work with us in your flat rate programs, but get in touch with us. We'd certainly love to, be able to share some of this information for you. And the key thing is, even if you don't use it, use our calculator to make sure that you start working that math out yourself. I'm sure you've probably got some pretty smart people in the organization that can help you, along with that, right? And the calculator that we have actually does have it built into the three scenarios. The other thing I really love about this model of pricing flat rate deals is that you give the customer three options. And Ken, as you all know, people love options, right? And option number one, as I've stated, essentially nothing changes. The customer just prints the way that they want to. The second one saves them some money, and it does require some behavior modification. The third one is the strictest, increases more security, and it has the best price. And so you let the customer decide which way that they want to go. And the beauty is now that the sales rep, because for each level of that flat rate program, because the margins are better, because the margin dollars get better as you start to remove waste, the sales reps are incented, again, that carrot, to sell those deals that have more rules. So even though the customer's spending less, the company and the sales reps are making more. For anyone that's watching for the first time that says that's crazy, there's no way for the customer to spend less money and for us to make more money, that doesn't make sense. We would love to talk to you about how that works, because boy, does it work for those that know, and for those that are doing it, it works beautifully. So make sure you get in touch with us. All right. So Ken, you were going to comment on something once we were done looking at that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to share a story about the impact in service of focusing your technicians' attention on proper things in service. When I was a district service manager, I went in and I had a dealer that did not want to pay bonus to technicians. He was one of those I pay him by the hour kind of guy. And I had this conversation with him, and then I'll share the results of what he did. Hey, we see Wes's comment there. Here's what was interesting: is this dealer? I went in and I said, "How do you feel about paying a sales guy a really big commission check?" And he says, "I love it. It means they made me a lot of money." I said, "If you do it right, when you pay a tech a great big bonus check, it's because he made you a lot of money." and he that clicked on him, so he agreed to try the bonus program for technicians. Now, he used our buddy Wes McCarter's tool, which I have yet to find anything any better than what Wes has.
Because
no charge out, Wes.
There simply isn't.
Well, I haven't found anything, and I look hard because I teach service managers. But this dealer went from carrying 1 million clicks per tech per month to carrying 2 million clicks per tech per month. They saved hiring 10 technicians. That's the power of that. And I was sitting in a team meeting where one of the techs, his bonus for the month was $800. So now let's think about this from two ways. First of all, we've put the carrot where we want them to go. We want them to do the right thing, so we're paying them to do that, which is important. The second piece of it is that if a tech can make an $800 bonus on top of his salary, how easy is he going to be to poach? He's not likely to go somewhere else.
No, it's absolutely true. And as Wes says, thank you for the kind words. And you know what's funny? I'll throw this out to the whole internet. We've never had Wes on as a guest, I don't think. And I think that's an important piece when we're looking at these flat rate programs is what his tool sets and their methodologies do to help dealers make more profitable contracts, right? So, Wes, I'm putting you on the spot. Would love to have you as a guest on Flat Rate World Live. So,
okay, wait a minute though. The one thing to think about: he was just on the stage at the BTA in Orlando, and he did a really good job, I hear. So I'm afraid he might upstage us.
I don't think that'd be too difficult, but certainly would love to let him get on the show, because what they are doing is fantastic. And I think it's always been important, but when we're delivering flat rate contracts, I think it's more important than ever. So hopefully we can get him on as a guest. And we are running out of timers, so I did want people to get flat rate certified, obviously. And there are several ways that you can work with Ken and I. Reach out to us, and we'll help you get started. If you've already got a program and it needs some fine tuning, or if you'd like to get the flat rate certified credential, talk to us. If you're starting from scratch and need more direct consulting work, certainly Ken and I would love to work with you as well. So make sure you reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help you, get started with your program. And obviously compensation is one of those areas that we work with our, partners for, right? All right. So look, we've got a commitment here. I'd be honored to contribute. We are going to reach out to you. If it's on the internet, it must be true, and it lives forever. So that's great. It means we got a great guest coming on. And actually, Wes, I'll see you later this afternoon as well, because we do have some other stuff to do together. If you want to learn more about what customers are seeing, visit flatrate.world. And we do have a website out there for those that are carrying the Flat Rate certified brand and logo and credentials, which helps make it easier for end users to understand why they should be looking at a flat rate option for managed print versus some of the more traditional ones. So visit us there. And Ken, really great. I can't believe it. As I said when we started this thing, I'm a little out of practice, having been off for a couple of weeks doing the home renovations. And it was really great to be able to, to see you again and to be able to do this again.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think we would do that. Well, we're not making anybody doing this. So, we do it just for fun, and we enjoy the conversation with our audience.
Absolutely. So everyone out there that has joined us for another episode of Flat Rate World Live, we're just so honored that you tune in. And, we've got quite a few regulars now, as well as I saw quite a few new names today. So make sure it's very simple. We do this every Wednesday without fail, unless I'm doing renovations.
And I'm out at sea somewhere I don't have internet.
Yeah, at 11 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you bookmark that time. And until next time, keep selling.
We'll see everybody. Thanks for joining us.